so while this is up in the air, I figured this might be a time to start lining up our subframe, because we are going to have to build some subframe connectors to connect the front part of the vehicle, because this is a unibody vehicle. So I'm going to start preparing the front frame here. So I made a little bit of a mistake here. I should have taken off these coils while they were mounted to the vehicle, because now I don't have all the weight of the car to push this whole suspension down and be able to safely remove these control arms, because ideally I kind of want to power wash all this and clean it all up before any touch-up paint or before it's ready to go back into the car. So I'm gonna have to disassemble this whole front end and get creative with whatever that's gonna happen over there. Okay, so apparently I tried pushing this up these ramps. It's not fun, but I gotta get some speed to be able to roll this thing in. Oh god, I'm so tired. It's so goddamn hot. Yes. Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this frame back in here is, one, I kind of kept the wheels on temporarily so I can actually roll this around easier, and number two, I got to bolt it up temporarily so that I can start mocking up the subframe connectors. So before I can even start painting the underbody of the vehicle, I still have some welding to do with the frame, and because of that we pretty much have to bolt all this stuff up temporarily, mark everything up, weld it all up, and then it's got to come right back down, power washed, and painted. We have a set of energy suspension. So these are poly. They are a lot stiffer than factory rubber, and since the old mounts are pretty much absolutely destroyed, this was a simple, easy upgrade, and it's going to help with the whole stiffness of the whole chassis. So brand new hardware, let's get this installed. Okay, so before I can even put these new bushings in, look at this, yucky, yucky. So before I can put these bushings in, my procrastination is getting the best of me. I gotta pull this whole thing apart, and I've been dragging this back and forth for a while, and it weighs a ton, and the offset's making it super sketchy. So I think I'm gonna remove this whole front end first before I continue working, because that's getting really annoying now. That is a snapped bolt. That is a snapped bolt. Pretty cool. Jesus Christ. There's not even a bolt in here. That's the first bolt that came out properly. Alright, so now we can see what the issue is on this side. It looks like that hole is bigger than what it's supposed to be. And so I think whoever worked on this last stuck a steel bushing in here. And then what they tried to do is they basically used this thick boy, stuffed it in here, and thought that by compressing this enough, it would kind of flatten out and be able to pick up on these edges enough that you know, it would hold everything in place. So unfortunately that's not going to work with our new bushings, because it basically needs to sit inside of this lip where my thumb is, and that's a smaller diameter than this is. So I'm probably going to have to like put a piece of steel there and then cut a hole open myself to be able to fit the new bushings in here. Alright, let's see if this side comes off any easier than the other side. bingo bango. So we've got this removed, and we can now proceed to mounting the frame up to the body. But first I gotta clean up this entire mess because I hate working when my garage is a nightmare like this. I should have done this a very long time ago, because now it is just getting in my way and it is ugly, and we're not even going to use this. We have a brand new power steering pump for the LS. This is garbage. Call this a fuel line? I don't think so. Okay, so I've pretty much organized these in the correct orientation, but I am missing this nut, which is for position number 2. I only have one of them, so until I find the other one, I'm going to temporarily just use one of the shorter bolts over here in place of one of these, just to mock stuff up until I get a replacement for this. So let's go ahead and put this in. Again, this is just temporary, so yes, it's dirty, yes, it's mucky, but we'll just have to do for now until we've got our frame kind of positioned correctly. So that's fine for now. So I can pretty much see this is pretty decently lined up. We are going to have to shim this around a little bit, but what I'm doing here at the front is lining up the center line of some of these bolts or the bushings, and then just lining it up with the shop floor. So to further line up your car with the frame, out of the factory there's this little hole, and it does line up with this little hole if you make it straight. So using just a rod, you can kind of see how straight, you know, this might fit. If it's not straight, you can kind of just wiggle the bar until you get it like nicely lined up. And then once it seems to fit kind of freely, pretty straight, you're pretty safe to fasten this one down. Alright, so the rectangular tube that I'm thinking of doing is just going to kind of wrap around our front subframe like this, and it'll basically be welded back here, and then the bottom part of it will be welded all the way to the back. So I think I'm going to allow this tube to be around 13 inches long, right about here. That way I can wrap around and bolt in from here, but it's going to have an opening to clear the bushing up above, and it will be able to just bolt in from the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting some of that stuff. Ta-da! Okay, so I've got a rough idea now of how this whole thing is going to look. This is all just quickly plasma cut as we saw. and kind of test fit, and it seems to work. So I'm going to make a second copy of this and clean up all these edges and make it look a little bit tidier. Bingo bango. Got that little cut. Sits flush up here, which pretty much brings it to this level. And that's it. Looks good. I'm going to cut out the other side, and then we'll work on the tube that's going to weld onto here all the way to the back. But so far, this looks good. I like it. And that pretty much does the passenger side. So now we can go ahead and take some measurements and just do the 3x2 that we're going to connect here all the way to the back frame. Alright, so now that I've got this kind of clamped in, I also have the passenger side clamped in. This section over here, the floor protrudes past the frame along here as well. So this has to get cut so that you can actually slide this thing in, because the goal is to get this somewhere here and we'll weld it up to that front tube. But you can see here it's hitting up against this section. So we're going to have to temporarily hold this up, mark it and cut it, and then we'll weld it back up and fill it in. Okay, all right, so over on this side, I'm basically just trying to line up the frame just enough that I can still get access to this bolt over here, right? Because that's for the leaf spring pockets. And we're just kind of making sure everything is lined up and straight with the rest of the vehicle here. And so now that we've pretty much got this nicely lined up, we can go ahead and run a line across here. And that is basically where we are going to begin the cutting. We're obviously going to have to play around with this cut a little bit more as time goes on, just to get everything nicely lined up. But at least this is a starting point. Beauty. Works perfect. Okay, so now that I've pretty much got these kind of tacked in place in a couple of spots, we are pretty much ready to slide this whole unit out, because I want to get some good room to be able to drill out these holes. So I'm going to take the top section of the subframe and have it clamped in here, slide the whole subframe out, and then get some clean access to some proper bolts, and then we'll slide it all back in, and then we'll do our final weld after everything is torqued in place. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so got them in place, got them bolted in, both sides, and we're ready to slide this back in, get it tack welded, drop out the frame, and then finally finish up all those welds. Making progress, making progress. All right, so now I think we're good with how this is all kind of set up over here. So I'm pretty much safe to pull this apart, and I'm gonna basically disassemble everything that we have up front here because we've got brand new suspension components, lower upper control arms, and stabilizer bars to get installed. So I think now that I no longer need the wheels to dolly this thing around, I can just strip this whole thing apart, because that's the only reason why I kept all this, is so that I can move it. And now I don't need to move it so much.